That's insane.
That just shows you how awesome we are.
Right? Tonight we are talking about things and moots, and that's things with a capital T, and we'll probably also be talking about things with a lowercase t. But we're going to go over that. Before we get into it, though, I do want to ask you guys to head over to our YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up. Helps us spread our awareness. Give us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, whatever you're listening on. And like the Facebook page. It helps us know that you're interested and encourages us to keep producing content for you. We also want you to head over to our T-Chip sites. I know we have tchip.com/heathen talk. And Lauren, what were the other ones?
HT Ladies and HT Kids. HT Ladies is a women's cut single color t-shirt with a white logo on it, which is pretty snazzy looking. I'm going to order myself one for Christmas. And also we have the Kids, which is our traditional Heathen Talk shirt, only in fun sizes.
Or terror sizes, depending on your opinion.
And eventually we'll figure out how to make Sam Flagle. I'm sorry for that promise he made on when he was a guest on the podcast.
We will. It'll be fun.
We just have to pick the print.
Also, please head over to our Patreon, and if you feel like it, give us $1 or $2. Helps us afford to host the show and maybe possibly get Torrin a mic and, you know, all the stuff that we need to do on our end to make sure you guys get good quality entertainment. Is there anything else we needed to cover tonight?
I did want to just really quick head over to our Facebook page. I forwarded something from Open Halls Project earlier this week, but they are looking for people to be on standby for making care packages for Yule for folks who happen to be away from overseas and away from family. So head over there, sign up to be on their wait list, send them an email. The information's on our site, and that way, if we have a need that they do have requests, there are people ready and waiting, and we can get those care packages out as soon as possible.
That's really important. We do want to support Heathen veterans and make sure that they feel like they have a community and a home back here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Real quick, next week will be a pre-recorded show. We're recording it on Sunday, so if you have questions you want to ask us about family and the obligations thereof, or you just want to tell us what you're thankful for, send us those questions on the Facebook page, on the subreddit, through our Gmail, however
Twitter.
You know how to get hold of us. Twitter, @heathen_talk.
Harass us on Facebook, because many of you know us on Facebook, so...
Yeah, when it comes down to it, basically, none of us really want to be doing a podcast the night before Thanksgiving. So we're going to do our best to pre-record an episode to help you guys figure out how to navigate Thanksgiving as a heathen.
And hopefully, you know, have some entertainment for you as you head out to wherever you're doing Thanksgiving.
Exactly. Or if you need an excuse to, you know, escape from your family on Thanksgiving for an hour and a half, come listen to us, recharge.
It's true. I think that's all I have for right now. There will be plenty of opportunity for us to talk about Cascadia Moot later in the show, and I'm sure you will be begging Torrin and I to never mention it again by the time we finish.
And we will not listen to your pleas.
No.
True.
So moving along.
Lauren, who are we toasting tonight?
Well, we are toasting someone who is a new friend of mine, but she's someone who I've known by reputation for well over a decade. and her name is Destiny Ballard. She's the godwoman of Bifrostway Kindred out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the reason we're toasting her tonight is because I'm going to talk for just a minute about this because it was awesome. You can read my full review of Wintermute on our website, heathentalk.com. But man, let me show it. They had one of the best events I've ever been to. And so appropriate we're toasting her tonight when we're talking about events. Great facility. They managed to feed all of us and accommodate for dietary issues and just vegetarian, and it was just really, really awesome, and led some really great feinings and symbols. And the Destiny has not only done this, but she's also been on the kitchen crew for Trothmoot many years, and this is the third year they've done this event, and it's kind of become I would say, one of the best events in the Midwest, and certainly worth the 5-hour drive for us to go. I went with some people from my kindred, and just like I said, wonderful, and she did a great job in leading rituals and leading high symbol. I have to say the high symbol was probably one of the most powerful experiences I ever have gone through in a symbol, but just wonderful. And Destiny also oversees Heathen Meetup there. She's done just countless other stuff, and all the while she's apparently a pretty awesome wife too, and other things. So, but I happen to really like her. She also she also happens to be a very good friend of my kindred too. So, to Destiny and to Bifrostway Kindred, you guys put on an amazing event, and I'm so happy I got to be there with you guys. So hail.
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 But yeah, if you guys want to hear more about what went on and why you should have been there,
just keep listening, because I'm sure that it'll come up a couple times in this episode.
I was going to say you can read my full review again, because I do go a little more into depth than I probably will here, because you guys probably don't want to hear this. Some of it's a little boring, but all in all, we really have good events in the Heathen community. I know there's some bad ones, but from very small ones that we have to the very great big huge things like East Coast Thing and Trothmoot, which huge is kind of relative when you're talking heathens. We're very good at successful events, I will say that. So what you drinking tonight, Torn?
Well, I'm drinking better beer than Josh tonight, and I say that without knowing what Josh is drinking, because I am drinking Full Sail's Bourbon Barrel Aged Imperial Stout. This is a fantastic beer. I've had it sit to the side for a little while and decided to finally crack it open tonight.
I'm fairly certain that is better than what I'm drinking. I'm drinking Widmer's Steel Bridge Porter, and it's pretty yummy, but not the best porter I've ever had.
I am drinking Gumption by Woodchuck because it's tasty, and I am poor, and I can't
I think I
afford.
have a couple of those in my fridge.
Yeah, I can't right now. I have found some really good stuff down at our local sundries, but can't wait for Christmas to happen. And once school's over, it's gonna be like, oh look, yes, I can afford that $7 a bottle of cider.
Josh, we're gonna have to make sure that she gets a bottle of Lake Chelan at Cascadia Moot.
Oh, there's so many good ciders out here. So
really
many
are.
good ciders. There's a few bad ones.
Oh well, yeah, there are.
It's easy to screw up a cider.
I will say that I went looking to get some, which no, not really. So I went trying to think and pick up some mead, and our local liquor store had some Viking's blood, and they had some South African meads, which I've had before, and they're okay. But the one that really got to me was they had Chaucers, and not just Chaucers. They had raspberry Chaucers, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds so unfortunate.
I almost want to get Lauren out here the night before Cascadia Moot instead of the day of, just so I can have a chance to bring her up to one of our local bottle shops where they've got 30 different varieties of mead on the shelf, like different brands.
All made within like 600 miles of where you are.
Probably. Most of them are probably Cascadian, except for a few that are imported from, overseas.
There's a while back there was a trend going around in the MMA fitness community for killer bee honey, and I have been tempted to pick up several pounds so I can do a small batch of killer bee mead.
Killer bee. That sounds amazing. That really does sound amazing. Now, I will say this, that I am trying to get my hands on some Cowie vineyards out of Paris, Arkansas. They have made a thing of mead, and I'm going to try to look again and see if Colonial had it, and they ran out, so I'm hoping they're going to get some more, but I am kind of excited to try some Arkansas mead, because that's something that I've never actually gotten a chance to have, and I think that would be pretty exciting, but we'll just have to see if they have it in, if they can get more in, but yeah.
Definitely.
Plus, it will go well with, we try to do these local dinners here as part of my kindred, and local meat is hard to come by here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was almost everywhere for the longest time, and it's starting to become a little bit more common around here. But that's for the same reasons that, wine, beer, and liquor have all started to become really common around here because we're allowed to make it.
It's true. So, Torin.
Yes.
Excuse me. The topic tonight is the thing, and
Right.
moots, obviously. It's something we see tossed around in heathen internet places all the time. On the sidebar of the subreddit, we have our Also True thing posted. What was a thing?
Well, a thing was something that was in one iteration or another was common all across the Scandinavian lands and Germanic culture in general. I'm not going to try to even begin to go too deeply into the historical accuracies of exactly when and where these were because it is not a topic I've studied, but they were fairly common on local levels and even on later national levels, such as probably the more famous iteration of it is the Icelandic thing. But the purpose of it was a gathering of the tribe with the express purpose of figuring shit out. That's really the best way I can put it. To a more or less formal extent, this is where disputes were settled. This is where laws were spoken and formed. This is where the normative culture was enforced. Is a way I guess I could put it. This is where people came together to make sure they were all on the same page. And that's really as specific as you can go into it without starting to address the things that were in specific localities.
Well, it's also important to note that the thing was where lawsuits were brought. If Torin and I had a dispute over land, we would bring it to the thing, and there it would be hashed out, and we would have to abide by the ruling passed down there.
Right. One thing that's important about the thing is, I'll go back to something I said. It was the enforcement of the normative culture. This is where people figured out what the normative culture was, what basically the rules for living in that local society were. This is where you found out what your neighbors thought. This is where you found out what you were at a point in history where there was a ruling class. This is where you found out, what they were doing, and this is where they heard from the people as well. So it's really just a way for, historically for peoples to get together and figure their stuff out. Modernly, it's a way for modern heathens to get together and kind of to figure out how to heathen. Because nothing will screw up your heathenry like remaining isolated for too long. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the topic we've discussed in the past about being an isolated heathen. Not really. What I'm talking about is somebody who doesn't get input from the rest of the heathen community. You will quickly start to diverge away from that. And the next thing you know, what you're doing is nothing that even really all that closely resembles heathenry, if that makes sense.
Right, and I think that comes down to being part of really reinforcing the cultural norms, the a thing where everyone comes together to hash out differences and to bring their own, to bring themselves into contact with other heathens is going to naturally start to form a cohesive culture.
Right. Now, modernly speaking, depending on what kind of group you're in, what region you're in even, you might not hear the word thing a lot. A lot of people will steer away from it. Like, for example, we've got Cascadia Moot coming up. At least on my end of things, as one of the people putting it together, I would never have dreamed of calling it Cascadia Thing, because we're not seeking to lay down any sort of laws. We're not seeking to settle the disputes between other heathens, stuff like that. And so we differentiate away from what a thing is and what it was. But there are some places that use it in that greater gathering sort of sense modernly.
Right. Well, currently there's East Coast Thing, for example.
Right. And I can't really say much. I mean, what can you tell us about East Coast Thing, Lauren?
I've never been. I only know by reputation, if that makes any sense. Okay. But it is I do know that it's an event that's gone on for a very long time and is a really successful event. Like I said, it's been going on for at least 10 years, and so I mean, that says something to me, that at least there is something going on there.
Right. And honestly, I have all the respect in the world to a group that's managed to get heathens coming back to the same place at the same time for 10 years in a row. That's a skill.
Especially to have it continue to happen even with all the fractures and upheavals that happen within heathenry in general.
Right.
But I will say, regionally, it seems like that, especially regional events, are far more sustainable because you start developing these very personal relationships with people. And I think sometimes when you know someone face to face, you're less likely to let a disagreement totally end a relationship, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think that's part of the importance of these events, is a disagreement's not going to end. If you've got years and years of history, a disagreement's not going to end that.
Right. Well, it kind of, in an off way, reminds me of something I said to a heathen friend of mine earlier today on Facebook, when he posted this meme that said something along the lines of, I just saved tons of money on my Christmas shopping by discussing politics on Facebook. And my response to that is, if a political disagreement disrupts the gift cycle, you're doing it wrong. So I think that kind of speaks to your point a little bit.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I mean, it's the thing. You build relationships with people, and I saw people a few weeks ago when I went to Winter Moot that I have not seen in 10 years, at least 10 years, and to be able to go and hug their necks, and that bond was still there, that bond and that friendship was still there because we have these shared experiences is just super important. And I just find it to be very important and to do and to have these face to face. Someone said at the event, everything we do online, and we do an online heathen show, but you know that was real heathenry, sitting face to face, being at symbol, and grown men openly crying over a lost friend and someone that we all loved. Um, Man, that's powerful, and the face to face thing and seeing these people and having those personal connections is just very powerful.
Right.
Symbol is powerful. I mean,
so now one question that I want to get out there before we move along is we talked about the discussion, or the what a thing is, but what exactly is a moot, and do either of you know where the hell that word came from?
I don't know where it came from, but I can tell you the modern usage of moot.
I mean, the modern usage is going to be good. I've never really questioned until we decided to do this show kind of last minute.
I found it.
Wait, before you go, is it a holdover from our Wiccan roots?
It is not.
Oh, well, I'll be damned. I was wrong. Continue.
A moot is a thing just for Anglo-Saxons.
because the Anglo-Saxons always got to be difficult.
But it's that old English stuff. It says here, a moot is an assembly held for debate, especially in Anglo-Saxon and medieval times.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the concept of moot I've never heard outside of a heathen context, and I studied British traditional witchcraft. I've been around Wicca for a long time, and that is a phrase that never came into my lexicon until I got involved with heathenry.
Honestly, the funny thing is I heard it almost exclusively, at least around here, I heard it almost exclusively in Wiccan circles until the first time I ran into somebody arranging a pub moot and was not about to go to it because I didn't think it was a heathen thing until it got clarified to me.
See, all the ones that I know of I've never heard that phrase used here. Everything here that's marginally pagan or neo-pagan is a circle or a fest or a grove. It's never a moot. Moot is so heathen, just heathen here.
Fair enough. I mean, it could be entirely possible because I'd say that even a significant number of the Wiccans and eclectic pagans around here are very, very heavily influenced by heathenry.
Well, I mean, on that note, the first quote-unquote heathen I ever met in real life was in Las Vegas, and he invited me to join his grove in a circle in Idaho. So, where they would be doing ritual skyclad.
Okay, you had me. I could have written him off as just ADF until you said ritual skyclad.
The scrawny little dude with meth mouth. It was quite special.
To be clear, I am never going to be holding a ritual with any heathens that choose to do it skyclad.
Let's just call it what it is, naked. For those of you who are not hip on your Wiccan terms, they are doing a ritual naked. And I'm sorry, I live in Arkansas. It's either too cold, too sunny, or too mosquito-y to ever do anything naked outside.
I was wondering if you were going to touch on the mosquitoes there.
Yeah.
Because that would be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't even like wearing shorts at night in the summer.
And the funny thing is, out here we could get away with it, but well, at least during the summertime. But certainly not anything that I've ever heard of any heathen out here even contemplating.
Well, I could see possibly heathens getting drunk enough to end up getting naked, but that's a whole nother story. There's no ritual involved in that.
Right, but usually there's just one or two of them, and everybody else is standing around laughing.
And
that's
daring
not
them to
ritual.
jump the fire. Yeah.
Right. jump the fire or jump in that glacier-fed river over there.
So we don't have those. So
I have seen that at least once. It was not necessarily a heathen gathering, but it was heathens that were involved in it. And to his credit, he jumped in the river.
Sometimes you just got to do it.
And I'll tell you what, that river, as hopefully many, many of you will find out come May, is not necessarily the most comfortable river to jump in unless it's the height of summer.
So,
yeah, I had a friend that did his ice bucket challenge in a glacial river, which I thought was pretty appropriate.
All right,
so
so
getting
moving on.
back to the historicity of the thing and the moot.
Historicity? That's a great word.
Historicity, yeah. I think that word alone just threw us back off the topic a little bit.
Go ahead, Josh.
Sorry,
y'all have been
Josh.
drinking more than me.
No, just working all day.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I was kind of excited to cover this is there's actually a current example of a thing that happens annually in Great Britain. It's on the Isle of Man, and annually they hold a get-together that's attended by several thousand people, and it's in the traditional style, and they claim that it's been going on for over 1,000 years at the same location. And a representative from the monarchy comes, and they hash out probably the smaller laws and such in a public forum on a hill outside. It's a very heathen thing happening in a secular nation in modern times.
Absolutely. And, if I'm not mistaken, don't the Icelanders still do it like every 2 years or every 5 years or something? They hold a grand thing?
Well, I know that that's what they call their assembly still, but...
Well, that's just a language issue, but
yeah.
they have the place, the name of which I'm not even going to try to remember, that is a historical spot with a particular boulder on a hill that they've been doing it since, for 1,000 years, and I believe they still do a semi-annual thing there. Or like,
yeah, hang on. It is in...
Let's see if she can pronounce it.
It is, no. However, it is, I don't know, there's lots of geography. It's a national park.
One would imagine.
And, yeah, that's all I got here.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Here we go. They've been using it there according to the Book of Settlements. They've been having assemblies there since AD 879, or excuse me, 874. Don't ask me to read things correctly. Y'all know I'm blind. And basically met there. It was basically functional until 930. And then kind of kept meeting, but those were kind of the most formative years, I guess you could say. And it was the chief legislative and chief judicial authority until 1271.
Until 1271.
Mm-hmm.
That's still quite the long tradition, and I know for a lot of the Icelandic heathens that I've talked to, it's something they hold in quite high esteem.
Now, it's interesting that all of in Scotland and Shetland and Wirral, England and Norway, they're all named some sort of variant of Tingwall, would be the areas where their thing took place.
Which is funny because
Isle of Man is Tynwald.
Yeah.
But you have Dingwall in the Scottish Highlands, Tingwall, Shetland, Thingwall, Wirral, England, and Tingvoll, Norway. So I actually think that's kind of cool that there are these. And for very interesting. There is a Thingvalla township in North Dakota, and it was one of the earliest Icelandic settlements west of the Mississippi.
So, Lauren, you just came back from an event, right?
Yes.
What was it called again?
Wintermoot.
Wintermoot. What was... Did you get the sense that the other heathens there felt that it was an important event, or was it simply just an excuse to get out of the house and do some camping before the season was over?
I would say it's important. If for one, I think one thing that really kind of triggers that thought is they had kind of one of the biggest events they had this year, probably somewhere between 40 and 50 people. I don't know for sure, and I don't have anybody to give me definite numbers, but there was discussion how they were going to limit the size of this because this was such a small, intimate gathering of friends, and because I think once you get past a certain number of people, you kind of lose there's something that gets lost in translation. But yeah, it definitely, I mean, this is kind of in our region the final event of the year, regional event of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, I think, important to everyone, and it's, on one hand, yeah, it is a reason to get together. Although this isn't a camping event, we're cabin people here. So, but on the other hand, it really is, I think, important. I think it's important to, at least to us regionally here, though I'm not part of the Midwest, I am Midwest adjacent. These kind of events are super important because it's a sharing of ideas, and it's a chance for us to really build bonds. I mean, sometimes some of the things, like going to an event like this, it's very hard to explain it in words even, because it does just kind of have a deeper meaning. And it's very profound thing to, I can talk to you about it all day long, but in a way it's kind of like heathenry. You can read books on heathenry all day long, but until you actually do it, you don't really get it. And I mean, this is kind of the same thing.
Why do you think it's important to attend?
Well, I think number one is the relationships. I'm just going to be calling it, to me, that's the big thing, is the relationships. Number two is, I think that it's good to get out and see how other people are doing things.
Absolutely.
Because we tend to get, building your local tradition is great and grand and wonderful, but, I mean, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some pretty insular groups around who don't get out necessarily and travel to other events like this, and as a result, their heathenry is not really growing. And that's especially, it's true, especially if you have, but even if you, and it's not just, I mean, if you have an older kindred, a younger kindred, it doesn't matter, tribe, whatever, you need to get out and interact with other tribes. You need to see how people are doing things, get ideas, spark creativity, and quite frankly, getting away from mundane life. I spent 2 days with very little cell phone because we were out in the middle of nowhere. And so you're very focused in on the present moment.
That helps.
And you're so, you walk away from those things, from events like that, and you feel, in the same way that taking a nap can leave you physically refreshed, I think going to these kind of events leave you spiritually refreshed.
Or at least mentally.
Yeah, and well, both. And just really can get you going and spark inspiration and all kinds of stuff.
I mean, so I can think of two really good reasons why these things are important, just from our point of view out here in Cascadia. Is first of all, we harp on and on and on about how one should try to find tribe. That, being an isolated heathen is okay, and it is something that sometimes is necessary, but being a solitary heathen is not. And that, which I'm going to keep pushing that language difference there between isolated and solitary, just so you people listening know. When I say solitary heathen, I mean the person that is choosing to remain by themselves and outside of tribe, whereas the isolated heathen is unable to have tribe for one reason or another. Um, Moving along, though, how do you find tribes if not through things like this? I mean, yes, you can look online, and we do try to help facilitate people all the time trying to find tribes in their areas. I know my tribe has an online presence so that people can find us if they want to seek us out in our local area. And, but that's a really limited way of doing things. It's a very slow way of doing things. Somebody gets a hold of my tribe and asks us, some questions via chat or something like that about what we're about, and then maybe we get together for a beer to meet in person and talk about things. And, that may stretch into 4 or 5 different meetings before you can really get a chance to get a handle on what this group is about. Whereas if you've got a regional gathering where all of these tribes in your region are all getting together in the same place, then you've got an opportunity to see them all and to have, 2 or 3 days of solid contact with all these different people to evaluate them against each other, see where you fit into the mix, if you fit in with any of them. And it also gets you a chance to really understand how many other heathens there are around you, which is something that's really easy to miss in modern day because we're not the overculture and we just don't stick out all that much.
Now, I will say that it's also a good way for you to find people that may share even the kind of values you're looking for. Because not every regional gathering is going to have every regional group. And if you're looking for a specific type of, or even not even necessarily that, if you're looking for a specific type of heathenry, if you're looking for Anglo-Saxon heathenry or whatever, that's another opportunity for you to make contact with people who are interested in the same things you are in your region.
And the second reason I was going to get to why these are important is you've heard us go on and on before about the concept of regional heathenry, of heathenry as a religious group growing beyond the concept of, hearkening back to the customs of lands that we've never even seen and getting into our own local variations of it, our own local customs. Is for us here in Cascadia, for example, how do you know what Cascadian heathenry is if you don't see anything outside of yourself or your tribe? These different groups need to get together and find out what are the common binding traits of Cascadian tribes. I can name a couple of things that I can say are certainly, if not universal, they're very common traits. Like we've discussed and horrified Toby with before, the idea of outdoor symbol. That's a very Cascadian thing, but there's got to be more.
Even on the same topic, we don't tend to differentiate between high and low symbol out here.
That's another thing, yes. Our symbol traditions in Cascadia are bizarre to the rest of the heathen world. So, not that one necessarily, Lauren. I know.
Yeah, that one is a little. I'm going.
Yeah. I know that not differentiating is somewhat.
Well, even the outdoor symbol thing. I'm okay. A lot of times when we have a get together, that's the only place big enough for everybody.
But it's a difference between.
Yeah, but we'll do it in the rain outside.
We'll do it in the rain outside. We go out of our way to do it outside. We will have 4 heathens in a circle, with a nice big living room just right over there. We will do it out in the yard around a fire because that is our custom. And
y'all are special.
That's because our nature's better than yours.
Every once in a while, when you're as civilized as we are, you have to step outside.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? Some sort of bullshit from hipster land? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
But so you've got those two things that I think are probably two of the most important facets of modern moot or modern thing is the idea of actually meeting other heathens around you to find tribe or to find out what the other tribes are doing, find out what they are. You make connections this way. You know, if you go to a regional gathering of this type, whether you be here in Cascadia or in the Midwest or out east or wherever you happen to be, you're not going to walk away without making at least one friend. And this type of stuff is important because it is the type of thing that, you know, while we have said many times before, heathenry is not a community, we are at least we do at least have one common binding to us, and it's good to continue to understand how the rest of the world operates in our sphere.
Now, I do want to take a little umbrage with you there, Torrin.
Go ahead.
I would argue that on a regional scale, we are far more community than we are if you just get people together in, you know, on Facebook or Reddit or whatever. I mean, I definitely think that on a regional scale, community is a completely valid word to use.
Well, when I was saying we aren't a community, I was talking about heathenry as not a community.
Okay.
Yeah. No, on a regional scale, certainly. You know, when we hold Cascadia Moot next spring, I use the word spring loosely because we don't really do spring out here. We have winter and summer. That's it. When we hold Cascadia Moot, you know, those people around me are, in a very loose sense, going to be people that are part of my community because they are part of my region. And that's the diffusing concept of community as it goes further and further out from your local sphere.
But events like this can then, in turn, actually build community.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are very, very strong ties, say, between my group and the other kindred in Northwest Arkansas. But that's because we have been getting together on at least a yearly basis for a very long time.
Right. I mean, you know, for example, again, because I'm going to, and anytime I say for example, I'm probably talking locally because it's what I know. Within an easy drive to not even, you know, think about the trouble of taking the drive to go visit people, I can think of two tribes just in my local area. One being down in Tacoma, one being down in Olympia. And both those are relatively easy drives from where I am. Those are two that I know. However, I am aware of the fact that there are more. I just don't know them. So things like, you know, us trying to, you know, kickstart a regional gathering in this area is going to allow us to know who these other tribes are. And really, if you don't know who your neighbors are, you've got a problem.
And I think that's been a driving force in a lot of heathen gatherings in general, is getting to know the people around you. I mean, for instance, just recently I had a conversation with a lady who all she knew about heathens in the Pacific Northwest is that there are racists out here. And, you know, I got to say, hey, you know, we're putting on a moot, and none of us are racist. In fact,
right.
We're about as far from that as you can get. And that this gathering allows us to build those community ties and establish a narrative of this is what we accept, this is what we don't. If you're not on board with this, then this part of the community isn't going to want to be around you.
Right. And, you know, and if I can say something here that might get a little bit uncomfortable, is no matter where you are as a heathen, there is probably a racist tribe near you.
Uh-huh.
And you need to know those people as well. And I'm not even necessarily saying you need to know them as you know your enemy. I'm just saying you need to know them. And go ahead and disagree with me if you like, Lauren. but it
I
is
think you need
important.
to know who they are. But I think that there are some times when you have legitimately racist groups who are involved in unsavory activities that, quite frankly, I don't want my name on any more watch lists than it probably already is for hosting this podcast. But I mean, we have a racist group here, and I won't give any details because I don't want to forward anything of theirs. And to be fair, we dodged them for about 5 years intentionally because we had people in our group who were teachers, um, and we just did not feel that it was good for our tribe to have any association with these people at all. Period. Zip zilch, nothing. Because, quite frankly, they were people who were involved with not just racist stuff, but they were proactively involved in other unsavory, potentially listy activity. And like I said, I just think that it's really not something that can happen that you can make a blanket statement on.
So
It's gonna very much depend on where you are and all kinds of stuff.
So Lauren, I agree with you. There is a threshold that gets passed
Yeah.
where a person and or a group becomes so far outer yard that they are enemy. And, a proactively racist group is certainly going to fit that bill.
See, and that's the problem here, what we have. It's not around here, that is the problem that we deal with. When I say racist group around here, that is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are, like, protesting at the Holocaust Museum. Racist.
Right. I wouldn't say, I'm sure that we have them around here. I am not personally familiar with them. Josh may be aware of them in this region. They tend to insulate themselves. Well, I'm just saying because he's also in this region, he may have run into something I haven't. The proactively racist groups, in my experience, tend to insulate themselves away from greater heathenry in this area.
There's a common theme among groups that groups that exhibit racist behavior, that not being racist or not being their brand of heathen is weakness, and thus they don't want to be part of a weak society and they avoid us. I think it's because they don't want to be challenged and proven wrong.
Right.
Well, bye.
How many? This is what we call pigeon chess. For those of you that aren't familiar with what pigeon chess is, it's when you get in an argument with somebody, and it's like playing chess with a pigeon, because while you're making intelligent, calculated moves in this argument, they jump up on the board, take a shit on it, knock all the pieces over, fly away, and declare victory. So that's pretty much what those guys boil down to.
So there's some broad reasons why it's important to go to these events, to get to know your local and regional heathens and help be part of that establishment of heathen culture in your region. But from a very specific standpoint, and personally, I've found that when I go to an event with my tribe, it actually strengthens my bonds with them as well. It's not just about getting to know and getting to meet the heathens around me and outside, but my relationship with those members of my tribe becomes stronger and deeper because we're around outsiders.
Absolutely.
Plus, there's nothing like a 10-hour car ride to make you really get to know your tribe members.
I don't know if I could do 10 hours in a car with my tribe.
We did 10 hours to Trothmoot in Indiana. We just did 5 hours to Oklahoma. Of course, I know, blah, 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 wastelands, blah, blah, blah,
I
Cascadia, blah, blah, blah.
routinely I routinely do 2 hours with part of my tribe to go to our gatherings. So distance isn't really an issue for us.
Not really. I know that I've done as many as 8 just because traffic sucked. But
Well, and I mean, just to meet Torin, I rode in a car with what amounts to what was a stranger for 4 hours to go camp with who was another stranger in a place I'd never been to. I mean, getting
yeah.
distance for us is not an issue.
Yeah, Josh. So let me just say this. I feel I need this to be, disclaimer needs to come out here. Please do not meet up with strangers in strange places. If you're going to a large event, that's one thing. But don't just meet up with somebody at a random park or in somebody's house. Use common sense. Meet up in public places.
I will tell you that of the many people that have wanted to meet with me and or my tribe, it has always been in a public place, usually with a place that serves beer, just because that's how we roll. But
see,
yeah.
with us lately, it's okay. Where can we find a place that the children can run around and scream and no one will hate us?
So, what was I going to say? I totally had something, and that's why I broke in with these. So, but it's been a very, very long day. I am on day 2 of swapping an engine at work. So,
Lauren,
yes,
you've had experience putting on events, and Torin and I are currently planning and working really hard to execute an event. What are some of the headaches and because we've had this come up on the subreddit, there are people planning events. What headaches and roadblocks can they expect when they're trying to get a bunch of heathens together? We're a cantankerous bunch.
Number one, and I think it's probably the most important thing that you need to hear if you're organizing any kind of event. It doesn't matter if it's heathens, pagans, Shriners, whatever, Redditors, doesn't matter, knitters. You are never going to be able to please everyone. And you are always going to have somebody complain. And so just remember that. So that, you know, it's okay if people get pissed off because you served carrot cake at dinner. And it's always going to be for the stupidest reasons, too. I just want to put that out there. No one ever gets upset because something legitimately bad happens. They always get pissed off because of, you know, something stupid. Good facilities are really hard to find for 2 reasons. One, the good facilities that are cheap book up a year in advance, sometimes more. In the state of Arkansas, in fact, state-owned facilities, you can only book them a year in advance. So if you want to have an event, say if you wanted to have an event on, you know, if I wanted to have an event November, you know, this coming weekend, I would have had to have booked it exactly a year ago. The other thing is alcohol policies. Especially if you're using public facilities, this is going to vary very widely based on how your state parks do in this. There's going to be some issues with it, and usually if you tell them it is for, you know, religious purposes, there's not an issue. But that's something that you have to think about, and finding places that can. I mean, you know, the thing of the matter is heathenry is not only getting more diverse, but we're seeing kind of our first generation modern heathens are getting to retirement age, if not older. And that's something else, you know, we have to think about is this an accessible accommodation? Are there enough, you know, I mean, are there places people can sleep? Are there handicap accessible bathrooms? Right. That's the other thing. Bathroom facilities. Holy hell. make sure there's enough of them. Because there's nothing more annoying than having to stand in line at like in the cold in the morning needing to pee. Just gonna say that as a woman. A lot of it is just. I think the magic of the groups that really, really put on the best events is a combination. Because two of the good ones I can speak of very highly is the crew that puts on Troth Moot in the Midwest and Bifrost Way's event. And I will say that White Wolf Kindred in Northwest Arkansas's our little kind of small state gatherings that they do at Midsummer is very good, but it's a much smaller scale event. But as far as, it's a combination of finding the right venue, finding the right people to run it, people who have experience in logistics like food. I mean, that's a huge deal. That's a huge, huge deal. And then people who have the right experience in organizing, because it's herding cats. It absolutely is. Nothing's going to run on time. I should tell you that up front. Nothing's going to start when it should. And build that into the schedule and be okay with it. And yeah.
Do what we've done and just don't have a schedule.
Yeah, but for a lot of events where if you're gonna have an event where you have workshops or classes, a schedule is kind of important so people know when they need to be places. Even if it's a loose schedule, first we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that, then we're gonna do this.
I will say that Lauren definitely has some good points there. I know at Cascadia Moot, while we do have somebody doing our kitchen who has a little bit of experience doing, large kitchens, there's a good chance that, kitchen is not going to run on the schedule that we want it to run. As far as, various events, be they classes or speakers that we're going to have, we're going to do our damnedest to make that kind of stuff run on time. And, any of you that are familiar with the SCA, I'm going to take a page out of their book, and we're going to have criers. And they're going to run around, and they're going to tell you, this is happening in 15 minutes. Be there or miss it. But, you're absolutely right. When it comes to organizing people in any capacity where they're doing this thing on their leisure time, and I think that's what it probably comes down to. It's not even heathens so much. It's that you're trying to tell people what to do on a schedule during their leisure time. And as much as they paid their money and showed up and want to do it, there's some part of the human brain that just doesn't allow them to operate like that.
Well, and sometimes there's also the simple fact that sometimes you get a workshop going on something, and it's a really good discussion.
Right.
And you don't really want to break it up, or at least give it a little extra time. The Scotty Snook, who was on the show with us a few weeks ago, hosted a workshop at Wintermute where we talked about her book and kind of talked about the aftermath of her book. The reactions she's gotten, and
I just want to interject for half a second there, Lauren.
Yeah.
If anyone that is listening is sending threats or anything to Scotty over her book, knock your shit off. I'm
seriously, guys, just
leave
it alone. Don't be just mean like that. But anyway, with her, but it was a great discussion and it kept going. Or, there was a hands-on workshop about making glass beads that was phenomenal. That may have run a little over. I'm planning on doing a workshop at Cascadia Moot on loosening as a kind of a meditative practice, and some people pick up on it super fast, and it may take some of you. I may have to take extra time because you're just not that good at it. So.
Well, so I'll have to repeat the question when Torn comes back because he likes to hear himself talk, and if we don't give him an opportunity to, he might get cranky.
I love that you say that when he's not here.
It's easier that way.
Yeah.
When we're holding when we're holding the thing or the moot, right? What sort of rituals or procedures do you think are fairly common for these events? I know from my experience, there's almost always a symbol of some sort.
And a feast. There's almost always, usually the last night of the event, there is a feast and a symbol. Whether that is, that's pretty much been my experience in almost every event I've been to that's been a multi-day event.
And I know as far as Cascadia Moot goes, we're not planning on anything beyond symbol.
Well, and feast. There'll be
Well,
feast.
yes, feast. I was talking ritually, I guess.
Well, but ritual procedure. Procedure-wise, sometimes the other thing that I have seen done at almost every thing I have been to, especially when it's an event that takes place at the same place every year, has been some sort of Lanvatir offering. Has been some sort of Lanvatir offering. I know to the groups that use some of these sites that we go to year in and year out, it's super important for them to keep that relationship they have with the land spirits. But your mileage may vary, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I just know it. If you want to, I think it's important, even if it's just done privately by, say, the group hosting it. I feel that that's something that's actually pretty important to do, as far as, yeah.
I think that's an important thing to say is when you're putting on, especially an event that's going to incorporate multiple tribes, making sure that each group knows that they can do their own event, or not their own event, but they can have their own symbol or their own thing going on within the larger context of the event that is for them. That's okay.
I'm going to disagree with you on that to a degree. I think it depends on the size of the event and the length of the event. When you're talking about a 3 or 4 day event, a Troth Moot, a Lightning Across the Plains, a big one, yeah. But it's very hard to do that in a weekend event because you run into the issue of just not having enough time. I'm just going to put it, there are only so many hours in the day, and that, at least it's just a thing that, yes, you can do that, but I don't necessarily think, it's not something I would personally recommend to my group at a short event. A longer event, a big one, yeah, absolutely, but at a shorter event, it's just not very feasible, not very practical.
What do you think, Torin?
Well, sorry, I get distracted for a second. Just to reiterate the particulars of the question to me real quick.
So the overall question was what procedures and rituals are common?
Yes, that question.
And then my sub-question was, well, sub-point really, was that it's okay to give time, or for a tribe to take time to do their own thing during an event.
Well, as far as, the rituals and procedure for that kind of sort of thing is common, I would have to say that what's common, from what I've seen anyway, has been that whatever organizational structure the event organizers are personally used to seems to be what holds sway, or anybody they've asked to hold a ritual, as it were. I know that we've all sat back and discussed this at Cascadia Moot, that we're not doing ritual beyond symbol for the simple fact that the idea of bloating with strangers doesn't necessarily seem like a great idea to us. As far as setting aside time for others to do it, I think that's a brilliant idea, honestly, because if you're going to take a group of people and you're going to bring them to an event like this, and there's a good chance that, you know, amongst the masses, as it were, are several coherent tribes of people. They're in a situation where ritual is going to seem like a natural thing to do. And especially in a situation like ours where we're not doing any greater rituals with the larger group, you know, not leaving them time to do their own tribal rituals seems to be a terrible idea. So I absolutely think that it's a great idea for any event organizer to allow some sort of, I guess, downtime, if you will, so that if a tribe does choose to do something like that, they can.
Well, and not even necessarily setting aside time, like, and on the schedule on this day, you and your tribe can do whatever you want. Just making it known that if it's something y'all want to do, go do.
Yeah, and you know, there may be a you know, for the obvious example I would go to of Cascadia Moot, there may be a yeah, do what y'all got to do, but don't do it in this place, please. You know,
Well, I mean,
take it over here.
like I said, I'm looking at it more from the logistical point of view. Experience as an organizer.
Right.
It's just very. I mean, let me say this: if you are coming to an event as a group and you want to do something, consider finding a way to come early, or get there in the earlier part of registration. Maybe do it after the thing is closed in the park somewhere. You know, also be respectful of the fact that these people have worked very hard to put together this event, and don't just show up at the event and then take off and go do your own thing and neglect the
entire event.
Yeah, the thing, and that to me is I guess to me when you say that there's definitely a level of respect you have to have for these people and the work that they have put in, and basically I'm going to use, these are big words here, but the gift that they are giving you by you know, because it doesn't matter, the money that you pay to go to these events doesn't halfway cover what it would cost if it were some sort of like actual, like if we brought in catering and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of sweat equity and hours that get put into here that is a gift from them to the larger region.
Now, seriously, y'all want to pay us minimum wage to do this? We'll take that, because
I'd actually be making a profit.
I could use a new car.
But that's what I'm saying. It's just a situation where we have to be cognizant of it, and don't disrespect your host. Be a good guest.
Right, and you know, to be a little bit specific on this subject as it goes to, you know, our own gathering that we're planning, if there are people that, you know, whether they be individuals or tribes that are looking to hold ritual outside of the context of the greater group, by all means, come and tell us. I am ridiculously familiar with this particular site that we're holding this on. I've been going to it for at least a couple of times a year for the better part of 15 years, and I can show you the good places to go. I can tell you when the good times to go there are, and you know, I can navigate the place blindfolded and drunk in the middle of the night. I've done it. That's not a joke. So, absolutely.
It was a little bit of a boast, though.
Yeah, you know what? And I will gladly, if I absolutely have to, I will hold that boast up, because I've done it, at least with certain parts of that particular site.
So, I want to progress on to the next question here. We've kind of established that moot and thing have the same meaning historically.
Right.
But the way they're used modernly, do you think it's fair to say that a thing is something that is much more formal, or would it be fair to establish the norm that a thing is something that's much more formal, whereas a moot is a social gathering?
Absolutely. I can't speak to Anglo-Saxon heathens, because they're all a bunch of ashholes. But given the origins of the word, if anybody is going to have a different way of looking at this, it'll be them. But I would say, yeah, absolutely. Modernly speaking, a thing tends to be more formal. At least in my experience, it tends to be a place where specific actions take place, whereas a moot does tend to be more of a social gathering. For example, one thing that's super common in this region is the pub moot. Hey, there's a bunch of heathens in this area. Let's arrange a gathering of us at a local drinking establishment and sit around and be heathens together. That happens all the damn time. I've never heard of a pub thing.
I do believe the proper term you're thinking of here is let's go sit out and go heathening.
I'd never heard it put that way until the internet. Like, that's not something we say out here. We don't go heathening, we go be heathens.
To be completely fair, that's something that my atheist husband coined out here. When we go out and do our heathening, and it's just kind of stuck.
I don't know, to go heathening, at least, to my ears, sounds like, let's go knock on a random person's door, sing them a Yule carol, and then burn their house down and take their stuff.
Sounds like a good time to me. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I got my pocket Havamal. Let's go.
Do you have a moment to talk about the good word of Njal?
Do you have a moment to talk about the Allfather?
Have you heard the good news of the runes?
So, one more quick question. I don't think any of us here will actually have an answer to it, but I'm going to volunteer Toby to provide one at a future date. What are good resources that discuss the differences between moots and things? We've kind of established that the root word is pretty much the same thing, but I couldn't tell you what books or papers to read that will tell you how they differed and how a thing in Norway was different from a thing in Sweden. I'm going to get our research monkey on it, and he'll do it. And he's not listening, so I can say that.
Also, I will also get my friend translator and all-around smartest guy I know, Ben, on that. Because why not?
Well, if somebody's makes it their profession to deal with the vagaries of ancient languages, I would say it's completely appropriate to ask him to answer questions about the vagaries of ancient languages for us.
Well, it's really funny because that's not even his technical profession. It's more of a hobby he makes money from.
I wish I had a hobby I made money from.
Let me rephrase that. That's his hobby he makes money from. I will say this. Somebody sent me this, a friend of mine on Facebook. There's a website called thingsites.com, and I'll put this up on Facebook or whatever. And it is a site where you can actually go and look at maps and pictures of all of the various thing sites that existed across Iceland, what's now the United Kingdom, and Norway. And
so it doesn't cover the important places like Sweden?
To be completely honest, it may cover more places than that. I was only looking at the little map there. I don't know.
You mean it doesn't cover the important places like Cascadia, right?
Well, that too, obviously, but they were saying historical, and we haven't had a whole lot of historical things out there. And in fact, and our audience, feel free to correct me because I would love to be wrong about this. I'm pretty sure that Cascadian Moot is the first Cascadian regional gathering of its type.
I'm going to correct you because you are wrong.
You? Tell me, please, because I've been missing this.
My tribe put on for several years Jombermoot. And it was put on down here at Silver Falls campgrounds. Unfortunately, people stopped showing up. It's a weird thing.
Is it possibly for the reason that we ended up trying to find an alternate site? Because I know Silver Falls was one of our choices for Cascadia Moot, but Granite Falls was ridiculously cheaper.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Oregon heathens are very insular and we don't trust each other very much because there is
so you mean Cascadian heathens? It's I will point out that earlier we were talking about the difficulties of that we run into putting on these gatherings. And Lauren, you may be able to speak to this. I don't know if this is as big of a deal in your area as it is in Cascadia,
Uh-huh.
but the difficulty of getting people to commit to actually going to a gathering and then following through on said commitment.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys, I just want to say this to all the other people out there who are trying to organize things, because I feel like this is actually a pretty important thing to talk about. I have tried to put on several, like, informal kind of pub moody things, and trying to get people to commit to going to something, it's awful. And that's really what has pushed me more into kind of this internal focus within our own tribe, because quite frankly, I'm tired of wasting my time. And so it seems like now with a lot of these events, you've just got to say, like you guys have done, this is the date we're doing it. This is when we're doing it, where show up. And you know what? People tend to show up. So
see, we get the exact opposite effect in Cascadia. We get, if you were to, for example, decide you wanted to do a pub moot on a particular date at a particular time, and you create, I don't know, say a Facebook group to that effect, you will have 40 people on Facebook RSVP to that event, and you will get 3 of them to show up.
We'll have 40 people RSVP, and then all of them will RSVP day of.
Yeah, that happens.
They don't even bother.
Quite often.
They don't even bother to remove the RSVP here. It's sort of disheartening. I know recently, as some people out in our audience may know, Trothmoot is being held in this region this year, or
Yes.
for 2016, and some of the organizers of Trothmoot and the local regions decided they wanted to come to the area, and they wanted to have a pub moot, and they wanted to talk to some locals, and it was hurting fucking cats to get people to even say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, we'll show up to that pub moot. And to be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't that many people that I think we got 7 people total that showed up, and 4 of us were the ones trying to organize the pub moot.
Yeah,
it just happens that way. And
yeah, we can't.
While discussing this topic, I was hoping to use this as an opportunity to possibly shame our audience a little bit, at least those of our audience that are talking about attending Cascadia Moot, is that if I were to add up all the people that said they want to come to Cascadia Moot, I would say that we've got 60 people coming. Would you say that's a decent estimation, Josh?
Yeah, we've easily had 60 people say, yeah, I want to come, I'll be there.
Absolutely. So why do we have less than 10 registrations right now?
That's a good question. I mean,
so
the
I'm
only
going
way
to put
we
it out
could be
here.
cheaper is if we were free.
Right. We are probably one of the cheapest regional gatherings I have ever heard of. Especially,
I'm spending far more money to actually get there than I am to go to it.
Oh, far more. And to be honest with you, now that you've already donated to the pre-registration, I would say we probably would have waived you because you're Lauren. But
you know, I
wouldn't have said that until you paid.
I just want to say this for the record. I was the first person, non-organizer person, to sign up.
So yeah, think about that, everybody. The first non-organizer person to sign up for Cascadia Moot doesn't even live in Cascadia. How does that make you feel?
She's flying in, and I think this is a common complaint, and I know we have people listening. Skullgrim could probably verify this, that it's a problem from west to east coast. Heathens don't want to travel, and I don't get it.
Okay,
because we want to be the overculture, but we're not.
I just want to say it for the record, as somebody who is in the, the not as heathen dense area of the world, all you people talking about, oh man, I had to drive like an hour and a half to that gathering, and I'm like, that's just absolutely Go hang out in Texas for a while, please. Go be a Texas heathen for a while. I can't wait till we do the Texas True show, just so we can say, so, what's the average commute for you guys for events? Because you guys, it's going to shame all of you.
Well,
Absolutely all of you.
beyond that, I know of a heathen out in Texas who does a procession, an idol procession, and he gets in his truck and drives in a circle that takes an entire day to complete his circuit, and visits different heathens with his idol.
And that's not even like a 30-second of the state, because Texas is huge.
So, I mean, that's one of the biggest roadblocks I've encountered is I get tons of people, even friends, saying, hey, yeah, I'm going to be there. I want to donate money. How do I do it? And I'll be like, go to the GoFundMe, donate your money. We'll reserve you a spot.
Even
and
my
I'll
own
answer.
Even my own brother told me to remind him next month so he can see how finances were. And we do understand that finances being what they are, and right now we are going into the holiday season, but it's only $50. And to be honest with you, let us explain to you for just a second why the pre-registration is important, if we can take that time. We can't actually do any of the things that you want us to do with this event if we don't have the money to do it with. That's the biggest thing. You know, at this point, we are still trying to. We've got the site fee covered, but we're still working on the food budget because we're waiting on more pre-registrations, more of the people that said they're going to come, but have not pre-registered yet. And you will definitely give us big, warm, fuzzy feelings if you pre-register for this, so that we can, know that the money is sitting there and waiting to go. Because we are planning amazing things like, serving spit-roasted wild boar on Saturday night. Think about that. Spit-roasted wild boar. Come on.
Well, right, and I don't want to harp on it too much. I mean, we all get it. I'm broke.
Absolutely.
Torrin's broke. We're all broke. So we get it. We do. It's just that's our personal frustration is trying to get people to come and trying to get the budget together so we can make it happen. I mean, none of us putting it on are in the same tribe, so we don't have a tribe budget to pay for it with.
Nope.
We're not even from the same area.
What's a tribe budget?
Wish I knew. It's we get it. We want you to be there. In all honesty, if there's a regional event near you, and by near you I mean within 6 hours, go. Go.
I'll point out that one of the things we're trying to do here is we are trying to establish what Cascadian heathenry is. You want your tribe to be a part of that. Bring this event to your tribe. Tell them that you think that you should be represented here, so that you can be part of what is obviously going to be an ongoing project for many, many years to try to establish what exactly is Cascadian heathenry.
Well, so on that note, there's a question that I think is actually kind of important that maybe you two can answer. And we may run a little over. We'll cut stuff out if we have to for the iTunes show. Like
We've
this
got some
comment
dead
right
air.
here. You can cut that out.
Absolutely.
When you have a moot like this, and you have multiple tribes coming together, is it, the bringing your inner yard and meeting in the outer yard? Would that be a fair correlation to make?
Well, I would say that, one of the things, for example, on Reddit that we've constantly said is that Reddit, the Asatru subreddit, is not a community. It's a marketplace of ideas. We are all coming together there as Outer Yard, but under the auspices of Grith, under an enforced peace between us. I know with Cascadia Moot, we are not pushing a particular ideology. We're not pushing a particular type of heathenry. We're not saying, this is a universalist event or a tribalist event or a folkish event. All are welcome, as long as they maintain the grith. So I would say, from my perspective, an event like this is definitely that sort of thing. Lauren?
Lauren, would you say that Wintermoot was similar to that?
I think that it's going to be very dependent. I think a lot of these things exist in the space in between. Because on the one hand, I don't know, it's, like I said, I think it is really just dependent on the event. And I know that's a cop-out answer, but different events, there's a vast difference between, the Arkansas Midsummer thing and Lightning Across the Plains or Trothmoot or East Coast. It's really so dependent on how much has the group been, it's just, I guess because I've been going to some of these events for so long that I just can't say easily, oh yeah, that's it. Because I just think it's way more nuanced than that. We refer to, there are people that, we see at these events that we refer to have the official designation as our kindred cousins. That's totally a Southern Ossetry thing, yeah. But honestly, I just don't know that that's an adequate descriptor for it. I just don't feel, because like with Reddit, it's different. As much as it is a marketplace of ideas, and I would enlarge, gatherings like, the way Lightning Across the Plains was, where you're talking hundreds of people. It's just so very different than an event that has 35, 40 people. Especially
Right.
35, 40 people that have been coming together for 5, 10 years. It's just, like I said, I just don't think that I think that's way too simplistic to describe every regional gathering.
Right. I don't think there's any way you can describe every regional gathering. And this goes back to the entire concept of, regional heathenry. Excuse me. Every region has its own customs, its own way of doing things. And, like Josh and I have discussed before, Cascading Heathens are ridiculously insular. So when you get Cascading Heathens from completely disparate tribes or thews coming together, it's going to be a meeting of outer yards. And there's really no way of getting around that. In fact, even in this area, I would say there's, to use your Southern heathen term of kindred cousins, there is maybe one tribe that I would even think of saying that about. And to be honest with you, even saying that about that tribe isn't so much that, it's me saying that about that chieftain. Because he and I are so much on the same page about just about everything that I would say that about him. I would hesitate even to say it about his tribe. And he's a damn leader. So I think that's what that boils down to regional differences.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's absolutely 100% on point there. And part of that is just going to be that. Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. Something like Wintermoot, I was among a group of people who I shared heathen values with. That I might not share the same values and ideas, and that compared to a larger gathering of, say, at something like, because it's kind of been the big kind of standard here, Lightning Across the Plains.
Right.
And I think that's kind of just kind of the way it is. And we're heathens. Like I love to say, heathenry is never ever, or never ever. Look at me, I'm saying it sarcastically. Heathenry is rarely black and white, and it's rarely simplistic. I think I pissed someone off by saying that the other day, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Well,
yeah.
I think when it comes down to it, like we were just saying about this particular question, it boils into regional differences, and this is the reason that when it comes to regional moots, regional things, local moots and local things, you should be going. You
Absolutely.
should be representing yourself. You should be representing your tribes if you have them, and you should be making sure that heathens gather more than just online. Because while the internet is a great resource, it is not the end. It is the beginning. It's where we start so that we can find these things. Even podcasts like this are, at best, a resource, but they are not where you need to be. Where you need to be is with your people. You need to be in meet space with them locally, and not just listening to a bunch of talking heads on the internet.
Yeah, because we don't really know what we're talking about most of the time.
Well, we do, and the rest of you are doing it wrong, but, that's just is what it is.
It is. But
so,
yeah.
That said, we are kind of running up against our time barrier.
I do have one quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
I want to say hello to Scott and Josh and Shauna from the Yarnsmitter Kindred, and I'm probably totally butchered that, but they were at Wintermute. Great guys. I did some vending. I got this lovely axe from them, and then they gave me this bottle, which you can't really see that well, but because it's just not picking up, but it is this lovely Heathen bottle. It's got this lovely etched glass Yggdrasil and Heathen on it, and I really appreciate it, guys. It was wonderful to meet all y'all and really enjoyed. They have lots of really cool, unique Heathen t-shirts that they do. They hand paint. So just really cool, guys, and just wanted to say hi since they've started listening to the podcast.
Fantastic.
Well, again, give us a like on Facebook, like this video, share the Facebook, donate to Patreon, buy a t-shirt, buy a mug, come to Cascadia Moot, and, drink good mead.
And as we've said before, if you guys have a regional gathering or a gathering of any sort going on in your area that you're trying to get people to come to, absolutely let us know, because if you don't, we're just going to keep telling you about Cascadia Moot.
Over and over.
Over and over again, unless you give us other events that we should also tell you about. Like I said before, for those of you in the Cascadia region, as much as this pains me to tell you about anything other than Cascadia Moot, Troth Moot is going on in our region this year. So if you're a Troth member or somebody who is friends with or interested in the Troth, look into that as well. Somebody else should do all of our usual social media stuff, because you know how inept I am with that.
Facebook, we're at heathentalk.com or facebook.com/heathentalk. We're also at heathentalk.com, where you can go read we're going to start posting some blog posts there, so you want to go check that out. Twitter, you can harass me because I run it at heathen_talk. Email heathen.talk.podcast@gmail.com. As always, we're on the Asatru subreddit on Reddit and YouTube at /heathentalk. And go and forth and like and harass us. Email us. Tell us what you are thankful for, and we will share that on the show for Thanksgiving, where we're talking about family. Everybody's got one. How do you do?
You like it or not?
Yeah.
So, real quick, in the spirit of spreading, one of our listeners who has been a supporter of the show, there's a pub moot happening in Boulder, Colorado, soon-ish, I guess. Give us a message and we'll get you in touch with the person who's putting it on.
Yes. And as always, guys, you're not the boss of me.
And you're doing it wrong.
I'm not doing it wrong.
Y'all have a good week.
Have a nice night.